Who's ready, Bills Mafia? It's the Bills Squad. Everything Buffalo Bills, every week. Breaking down the big hits and game-changing plays the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. So gear up and squad up. The Bills Squad show starts now.
And welcome in, Bills Mafia. It is time for the Bill Squad show. I'm Jeremy White, and I'm having trouble here with our graphics. There we go. I'm Jeremy White, and I'm interested to see what the Bills look like against the Dollar Store Ravens.
I'm Joe Marino, and I'm excited for Abominable Snowman Week.
I'm the big O Jerry Ostrowski, and if you wanted revenge, well, Ravens, you got 18 to 20 more weeks to think about it. This is the Locked On Network, and you're watching Bill Squad.
Jeremy White, Joe Marino, and Big O, Jerry Ostrowski back for a Thursday edition. Hope you enjoyed the post-game. Our schedule is pretty much this. Post-games and Thursdays around now, 2 o'clock. And, by the way, shout-out to everybody that tuned into post-game, which was everybody, right? A big number of you watched. Joe called in from the parking lots, from the car. What a time we had after that Bills-Ravens opener.
Jerry provoked me to say something right now with what you said there. And for all the conversations about the highly motivated Ravens seeking revenge, they were so urgent and motivated that they couldn't finish a game that they had a 99.1% win probability to finish. So guess they couldn't dig deep when they needed to most. So if there ever was a moment for me to dig my heels in and say, miss me with those talking points, it's right now, and I had to take advantage.
Maybe it wasn't that important that you couldn't close out 99%. I mean, 1.1% with about 8 minutes to go is the Bills' probability to win.
Yeah. Lots to get to today, including some breaking news from less than an hour ago. But today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So the breaking news we have from today is an Ed Oliver injury. First reported that Oliver was seen with a walking boot, and it was a little bit slow coming out, but it did ultimately come out. The initial report on Oliver in a walking boot came from Nick Sabato of the Niagara Gazette and Lockport Union Sun and Journal. And now Adam Schefter has confirmed that. Other Bills reporters have confirmed, like, all right, everyone's seen Ed Oliver in a walking boot. The timeline of it is what's interesting. Joe, he spoke with the media yesterday. He practiced yesterday. And that kind of timeline would indicate that this did not happen at practice. You don't often see a player meet with the media after picking up an injury. He also apparently is walking in the walking boot, but riding on a scooter, but playing ping pong. So I don't know what the read is here, but it's odd, and it's obviously a very concerning issue for the Bills.
Without a doubt. I mean, if you heard a collective cheer, that was coming from the Jets facility, because the game that he played last week was probably arguably the best game that he's ever played as a Buffalo Bill. Difference maker, change in line of scrimmage and all that. But I hope this is not something that happened off the field in a reckless incident. Now, obviously, we have no information of how this happened, but when you get into the season, it's time to button down, and your job is to be out there on Sunday. So hopefully this thing is minor, but being on a scooter with a boot, that's a bit concerning.
We'll all be on pins and needles waiting for Sean McDermott's appearance with Sal Capaccio on Friday on WGR. So that's usually somewhere 11 a.m., 12 p.m., somewhere in that range. And that's when we're going to know the truth. Until then, we're just going to speculate. But obviously, we're expecting the Jets to come into this game and want to run the football. And you're coming off of legitimately Ed Oliver's best game, and you felt it watching it live. It was better when you watched the tape. And obviously he finished last season at a really high note. And so this is pretty disappointing if this is going to cost him some time.
Last time he was in a walking boot, he missed 3 games. That would have been after the Ram game, picked up an injury. He did not make it to IR because he played with just 4 games later. That's obviously the first question here is what do you do about the timeline of this? Then there's replacements. I don't know, guys. Like, how far down the road should we think about this? And how much, looking at Oliver's performance in that Baltimore game, was that not only the important Ed Oliver, But Jerry, you said it showed up on tape. Joe, you said it showed up on tape. Like, what about Oliver was so dynamic, was so different in this game that allowed him to put his best ever game out there as a Buffalo Bill?
I think the best thing he did was not only when he made plays, when he wasn't making plays, the way he was playing his gap integrity on his man, he was causing good things to happen for those around him. Now, some of those guys obviously had a really poor showing of finishing the play. But when you look at defensive line play, it's not, a good game for a defensive lineman, 4 or 5 tackles. I mean, you're not going to see them have a ton of tackles, but they need to alter the front of the offense to where your linebackers and safeties and those guys can fill and make those plays. That's the thing I saw out of Ed. It wasn't just the individual plays. It was the way he held his gap, the way he was able to get on the other side of the line of scrimmage, allow his other defensive linemen to clean up and things of that nature. He held his gap integrity incredibly well in this game.
Jerry, I'm curious if you will agree with what I'm about to say. I thought Ed Oliver was phenomenal. I mean, he got off blocks. He made plays. He influenced plays that he didn't, don't show up in the box score. But I thought one of my favorite things about Ed's performance was how complimentary it was to what those edge rushers were doing and what Daquan Jones was doing. I don't know that you would come away thinking that those guys were amazing in this game, but I thought they played really well together and had a good understanding of how everyone was leveraging things and were able to play off each other very, very effectively. And so I think, Ed Oliver is the star, but I think there's some credit that needs to go to Rousseau and Bosa and Daquan Jones for that collective effort.
Exactly. I think that they did a tremendous job. It was the first time in a long time we've seen how they want that defensive line to play together, and you saw it all fit, because I think sometimes there's a little bit of a misnomer when we think about Lamar Jackson and how he gets out of the pocket. It's not like he gets around outside of the defensive end and then gets downfield. A lot of times it's defensive ends don't get compression, they're upfield, and then he's through C-gap, and then he's gone, and then he gets outside. So, yeah, it was really cool to see how they were all working together, and finally an instance where you could see the mesh between the group.
Oliver plays really well. The story relayed is that the fumble he forces, he's not supposed to go in on that play, and he kind of waves off and says, "Let me in there," which, I don't know, Jerry, is that a really good indicator? You got one of your best players saying, like, I know you might think I need a rest, but, like, you can't keep me off the field right now. He's too needed.
I've talked about it before. There's instances, and they're very few, but there's times when you play that you're having a day. Everything is going your way, and you're feeling it. And obviously him waving off TJ Sanders and going back out on the field, he was feeling it. Yeah. And we saw it. I mean, it was hard not to see. And, I mean, a guy like Ed, you're not going to have a defensive line coach go, "No, I'm the one who does, I control the rotations, not you." Not in this case. If that guy wants to be out there, have at it.
It's something we'll track. Ed Oliver's injury, see if we get any information during the show. We'll pass it along. But the defense is the story of the week that follows the game. I mean, Josh Allen's named the offensive player of the week. Josh Allen has done that 15 times before. Like, we're kind of used to that. He's incredible. But let's talk about the defense. Joe, I know on your all-22 review, you highlighted linebackers, you highlighted safeties, and McDermott going full padded practice on Wednesday, and McDermott saying we need to buckle down. It's pretty clear that, yes, they won the game, but the head coach was really troubled by what he saw out of his defense. So help us get into what happened beyond the defensive line, because we know some good things happened up there. What happened behind it?
I went into the watch expecting to be disappointed with the defensive line, and I didn't find myself in that place at all. I found myself disappointed in the linebackers and the safeties. I thought the defensive line played well. And what it looked like to me was a bunch of guys, 8, 58, 9, not as much 24, but guys that were reluctant to fill, to trigger, played slow, missed reads, didn't want to play off contact. It looked like they're making a lot of business decisions out there. And you listen to Sean McDermott this week and him talk about, this has to be a hard week for us. And he was kind of probed on that and was able to get a follow-up out of him where he said, they asked, what does hard mean? He goes, well, we got to have hard conversations. We got to be really honest about what is happening on tape and, how to get that fixed and not beat around the bush. Like, this is the things that Sean McDermott is saying. Listen to every word Sean McDermott said as a head coach of the Bills. He's never said stuff like that. And to me, it was his way of acknowledging some of those shortcomings that existed. It was disappointing. There's the quick snap stuff that mattered in this equation, but overall, the theme was those guys look disinterested in playing downhill and being involved in the way that they need to. And this is a Jets team that's going to get after him this week. And, we could talk about giving up less yards and less points, but this is a group that needs to be more physical and intentional and willing to get downhill and play into the line of scrimmage. And they didn't show that against Baltimore.
It's funny. The guy that catches most of the strays is Cole Bishop, and I thought he played the best out of all of them. And his mistakes were more along the lines of being inexperienced and young, not getting proper angles, things like that. I thought that he was willing, and he's able. The other three, I'm not sure they were willing this game, and it was really telling. I mean, the amount of knockdowns on those guys, the physicality as far as them getting blocked and things of that nature, it was troubling to see. Now, one thing Baltimore does really well is they're not just going to come out and run zone. They're not just going to come out and run gap. They're going to run old school style football plays, angle blocking football plays where you put a hat on a hat, you got down blocks. They trapped TJ Sanders and ran that tackle trap or that wham play that they run on the tackle that they did in the first play last season in regular season. It went for a touchdown. It went for a touchdown again. They do a really good job of climbing second level and those things. I thought Linderman, the center, as advertised, Joe and I talked about him in the past. He was an animal.
He's a dude.
And the places he can get and the quickness he can get there is really, really impressive. But that being said, those guys never forced the issue. They never made it hard on the offensive line of the Baltimore Ravens to have to get to them. They were right in front of them the whole time and usually on their heels, not coming downhill. And that's got to change.
So I think there's a comment here that, well, it could be this. You guys let me know what you think. Semper Fi guy, who needs preseason first team snaps? Was it an effort that looked rusty or worse than that? Not rusty, but uncommitted, unengaged, to say business decisions. I realize, like, when you're saying this about football players, that's a pretty serious, suggestion.
Well, Josh Allen doesn't need first team reps in preseason. Can we can acknowledge that? So there's that piece of it, but I don't know if it's as much that. I mean, you can kind of look at some of these players. They missed time in the preseason. Not Milano, but he missed one. I don't think he missed any time, but Bernard did, Rapp did, Bishop did. Looked like some guys that didn't want it. Like I always talk about, these linebackers and stuff. You got to be willing to stick your face in the fan and like it. And it didn't feel like they met the moment. There was a reluctancy to stick their nose in there and make the plays that they should.
And Jerry, that's a function of this. These linebackers, you play linebacker for this team. You're going to be in this matchup, hey, you're going to be the smaller guy and you're going to have to go take care of it anyway.
Definitely. I think there's a lot of times, you're going to get beat up. It's just a game. It's the way it is. It's a physical game. But if the effort is there, if you see the effort being put out, then you don't, hey, we understand we're a matchup mismatch and, we go about our business. The effort was a little iffy as well, which was troubling to me. I mean, if you see a lot of effort and flying around and you just don't get it done, well, that's one thing. But if you're passive and you're not playing with a tremendous amount of effort, almost looking completely and utterly confused, which is surprising me. These guys are long-term vets. They should know what the heck's going on by now. You talked about the reps in the preseason. I thought our offensive line probably showed a little bit of that, a little bit of rust. I think they were fine, but they weren't at their best. But obviously they didn't need to be at their best, the amount of points they scored and the production they had, but they're only going to get better. But yeah, I mean, that's the deal. I want to see effort. I want to see everybody at the football. I want to see effort. And when you don't have that, and then you coincide, you put it with, playing passive and those types of things and being confused, that's not a good mix.
You know who plays hard? 97. Man, Joey Bosa, that dude plays hard. So this is not about everybody. That's a player that I thought really stood out. I'm glad you said that. Then I thought we were talking about the three guys that we were talking about, and Bernard, Milano, and Rapp. But no, the Bosa brothers are, I've told you this many times, those are my favorite. I love those dudes, man. Those guys, I could watch Bosa's play football all day long. It's awesome.
His debut, good. What would you like from Bosa? Was it everything that he did? Just pretty much did the job, understood the assignment? Well,
he got sucked in on a few zone reads, but if you can get past that, I thought he played a great football game with how he was setting the edge. I thought his rush was really good. I'm I'll spoil some of my thoughts about the Jets. I think a big Bosa game is incoming, maybe a multiple sack game. I thought his rush looked really, really strong. I thought he was quick. The power was there. He was close on so many different things, and I think he's going to eat up these young tackles for the Jets.
To kind of piggyback on what I said earlier about Ed Oliver, the thing about defensive linemen is it's not always, you don't have to have 6 big splash plays to play a good game.
Yeah.
And you watched Bosa, and the way that an end is supposed to play, you saw that every play. Now, he made a couple mistakes, and that could be rust. I mean, we know he had the injury issues, maybe not a ton of time. And, there's nobody in that building at One Bills Drive that can emulate his own read from Lamar Jackson, not even 17. I think Lamar probably does that as good as anybody, right? So you might have a miss here or there with that. But watching him play, his fits, how he fits the run, his edge and all that. And I know I must have said a bad thing because Joe's over there cringing right now. He's ready to pass out.
Are you about to say bring back Isaiah McKenzie? Didn't he?
No, I was
no. It was a slight against Josh Allen.
Oh, okay.
No, it wasn't. I was thinking to myself, who would be the right player to have emulate Lamar Jackson? I was like, is that Curtis Samuel? That was honestly where my mind went. So sorry about that.
Curtis Samuel's got to be full go. Wasn't McKenzie the guy that used to do it for them?
Yes. Yeah. So my head was spinning. That's where it was.
Probably Hairston.
Yeah,
he was helping.
Right. He would be. Yeah.
They need somebody fast to do it. Anyway, it is the Jets this week. We'll get into the key matchups a little bit. I know their rookie tackle Armand Membo. He had a nice performance against TJ Watt in the opener. That's what we might hear coming up a little bit later. We've got the Locked On Jets host joining us in about 15 minutes. So stay tuned for that. Jeremy White, Jerry Ostrowski, Joe Marino here as part of the Locked On Bills channel. And again, thanks everybody tuned in for post game. Like we had 30,000 views on YouTube, tons of downloads. Joe was again, the call in from the car to me is like that's how I'll always remember that game. You lost your voice. It was memorable to say the least.
It kind of sounded like you just had root canal done.
I don't know what happened there. I think I was feeling a lot of adrenaline from being part of that moment, and was so excited to get on there. I mean, I'm a real guy, I'm not a robot. I was feeling some emotions there. So
beautiful. All right, when we get back, we'll continue digging into what the Bills need to do to buckle down on defense and whether or not there need to be changes on the offense. While the defense needs better results, I think a lot of Bills fans are talking about the offensive process and how they should kind of approach things. So it's coming up next here as we continue on the Bill Squad. FanDuel Sportsbook. You have an opportunity to jump in with FanDuel. The NFL season is here, making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. That's right. You can use it really however you see fit when you get those bonus bets. I turned a bonus bet into a pretty big parlay in that Bills-Ravens game. So, you get those bonus bets. You can kind of throw them around, maybe a little more fun, a little more high stakes. And FanDuel, it fits however you like to bet, whether it's player props, same game parlays, or live betting. Every game is a little more exciting that way, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. All right, back here on the Bills Squad show, talked about the defense needing to buckle down. Ed Oliver's injury is of concern. On the offensive side, the big story this week, Josh Allen bails them out, right? Josh Allen, the offense, they go nuclear in the fourth quarter, and he puts up 250 yards and a bunch of he won AFC Offensive Player of the Week in the fourth quarter. Keon Coleman has a bit of a breakout performance. The question is, does Joe Brady think, all right, thanks, everybody. We all got out of there okay, but the way we started the game wasn't the best way to do it. A couple of 3-and-outs, conservative calls, a lot of throws behind the sticks, not really testing Baltimore. Joe, do you expect Brady to be more aggressive in this game? Does the matchup present itself to be that way in New York against the Jets?
The Jets are going to give us man coverage. That's what Aaron Glenn did in Detroit. That's what they did last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they're going to blitz a decent amount. But I feel like there's a level of confidence that I have in the Bills' collective skill players against the collective Jets secondary to have some opportunities to win and find some space. And I think one of the most important things for the Bills against the Jets is to be aggressive and score points early and try to make it a drop back passing game for Justin Fields. And I don't think that's going to go well for the Jets. And so I do think being intentionally and aggressive early in this game, not only to, score those points, but to really dictate this game script. And so I feel like this is more of a throw the ball game that's coming up. I know that they're always going to be like super committed to the run. I think it'll be part of it, but I think this is going to be a throw to get the lead and run to get the heck out of there.
No, I think a lot of this has to do with the last game they played and the emotion that goes into it and the amount of energy spent to win that football game. I think it's important you get out to a good start. You want to get them hot. You want to be hot early. You want to get 17 involved. You want to pass the ball, score points, and get this thing rolling and put that doubt in the Jets' mind. The longer you let them hang around, the worse it is for you. So hopefully we're not in conservative mode where we're trying to, continually run the ball, a couple of 3-and-outs and those things. I want to see us get that momentum or at least build on what we ended with and get these guys back involved, because it's, it is hard sometimes going on the road after a game like that. As a coach, you can force your players to get going, and hopefully that's what Brady does.
The matchup, is it – let me make you Aaron Glenn. What do you do with Sauce Gardner? Is he traveling this year a little bit more? Do you put him on Palmer? Do you put him on Coleman? I mean, Coleman is someone that just kind of showed a little bit, and maybe you want to make sure that Allen's favorite target gets your top corner, even if he's not necessarily a man beater. How would you use Sauce Gardner in this game?
I'm really excited to find out the answer to that, Jeremy. And I think that's the air quotes benefit of not having a legitimate number one receiver, is that when you play a corner like this, there's no real advantage for them matching up over one specific guy. And so if they do choose to deploy Sauce in a way like they did last week, where he followed DK Metcalf, I think it's going to say a lot about the perception of which receiver is the one that's most concerning. I don't think it'd be Khalil, because Shakir plays so much in the slot. I don't think that's where they're going to play Sauce. But if he does follow Palmer or Coleman, I think that's going to say a lot. Palmer's certainly the player that I think is the more dynamic route runner that's going to create the space. But what Keon's doing off script, the way he's beating zone, he had a huge touchdown catch against the Jets last time these two teams played. Even that was post injury Keon. It'll be quite interesting. So I think if they're going to want to take away a player, they'd probably be best playing him against Palmer, because I think the route technician that he is. But the guy that I think can hurt him, is Keon, and that would be Brandon Stevens. And I think Brandon Stevens has been struggling for the last 3 years in the NFL.
Well, the thing about Sauce on putting him on Keon, which I think makes sense, is the fact that you had him on DK Metcalf last week, another big physical receiver, right? Now, DK probably has a bit of an advantage, stretching the field and verticality, but still, Keon makes his living on being physical. I think if you match him up, Sauce maybe takes that physicality away that Keon has over a lot of cornerbacks.
One thing I wonder, how much are they coaching up these corners when they're covering Keon here? He might not beat you in the first 5 to 10 yards, but the quarterback extending plays, you have a totally different job with this receiver, because he's looking back to his quarterback as good as anybody does, and you have to stick with him the entire way. It's like you're chasing Steph Curry around the basketball court, right? Like, no matter what, I don't care if he has the ball, I don't care what's going on, you got to be next to him at all times.
Joe Brady said a couple of years ago, we have to be the best scramble drill team in the league. And I think that is important when Josh Allen's your quarterback. And I think that's a big part of Keon's game, is how he can find space and then use the size and ball skills and athleticism that he has. I mean, Keon's a really, really dynamic athlete. He's just not super explosive, if that makes sense. And I think that meshes really, really well with Josh Allen in that off-script game. And, one of my favorite things about Josh's performance against Baltimore was how many times he rolled left and was able to make plays on the move, right? That's kind of been the book, is, can't let him go right, he's lethal. Well, he was lethal going left against Baltimore, and that's something that gets me pretty excited. And so, yeah, you got to defend the play, then you got to defend the second play, and sometimes you got to defend the third play when you're going up against a guy like Josh Allen, and Keon's a really dynamic threat when you consider it through that lens.
I think when you defend Keon, as far as a cornerback goes, it's, there is, obviously you got to flip hips and run and those types of things, but I don't know if the emphasis is really on that. Yeah. With a cornerback that plays against Keon. It's more body positioning, being able to find the football and defend the football, high point at those things, and play almost kind of that basketball role. You're bodying him up and you're trying to keep him in between, him and the basketball. So it's the same thing in this football aspect. I don't think it's one of these deals where you're worried about getting burned over top. But right. You got to make sure your body position is good. You're not overcommitting and all of that, because We know the back shoulder's there, his ability to find soft spots in the zone and everything else. So I think maybe it's a much more patient type of style of play as opposed to just turning and running.
One player we didn't see too much of, Tom has a comment here. I'd like to see Ray Davis play a bigger part in the offense against the Jets this week. We had big plays from James Cook, of course, and the catch and run, and he had a touchdown, a little bit of Ty Johnson in here. And I wonder about this three-headed monster. Did it just go off script for the Bills in that department against Baltimore?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you really look at Ray Davis's role in that offense. What is it? When James gets tired from running 4 or 5 times, you bring him into the game. Buffalo never got into that situation. It was either, passing the ball, you had James Cook, then you went to Johnson, who then could do some third down things as well. So I don't think they ever got into a phase of the game where Davis was the back that you would really utilize, which is, the backup to the main running back.
I thought he had 2 touches in the game, and I thought both. I don't like how he approached either touch. I thought he turned down like good creases and tried to get big play oriented and bouncy. He didn't play within his skill set, so I think that probably factors in as well. Where I don't think he had the right feel for how to press and attack that Ravens defense based on the 2 times he touched the ball and what he did with it.
No, I think you're right. I think his style is downhill, and you are right. He tried to bounce the ball and all that, and that's not what he does.
No.
You guys are just waiting to see more Jackson Hawes, aren't you? That's what this week is about. You just want to see 3 tight ends and smashing in the face with Jackson Hawes as much as possible.
Well, you guys are all fighting over the Heritage, Dawkins, Allen jerseys. I'm trying to find a Heritage Jackson Hawes jersey. That's what I'm going for, man. I'm all about it.
The hype is, you hear what Dion said today. He's the best young blocking tight end he's ever seen. You heard what Brady said recently. It's obvious. The guy can really make an impact. And I didn't see a 30-yard seam shot catch to set up a goal-to-go situation as part of week, his debut. But that's a nice little benefit if he can get some of that going.
That was actually 3 catches in 1, Joe.
Yes,
I think he caught that ball 3 times before he came down.
Could you? The guy held on. So, that's a tough grab. I couldn't believe Josh ripped it, but I'm glad he did.
Yeah.
So with the idea that Hawes is so good, let me ask you guys both this. What percentage of it is technique? What percentage of it is strength? What percentage of it is want to? Because if he's the best that you've seen, Joe Brady also said that, best they've ever evaluated. What's the mix that makes him so good at it?
I think that I've always said this. Run blocking is 25% assignment and technique, and the other 75% is one to go kick somebody's rear end. And he takes a lot. You got to take pride in it. It's something you take pride in, and believe me, he takes a ton of pride in it. And you look at his hand placement, his steps are impeccable. He was taught really, really well in college. Obviously, whoever coached him, props to you because you did a hell of a job. But even the best laid plans go out the window. So at some point you've got to be willing to just do what you have to do to make it work. And he does that very, very well.
You see him getting under the skin of these Ravens players. They were so done with him. He was giving it. And there was multiple guys where you could tell they were just, push at the end. Like they didn't want to deal with him. There was even a play where I was borderline, maybe a little extracurricular, but he's a tone setter. Like obviously it's effective what he does, but there's an identity piece for what he's going to offer this football team.
I think the best term you can be called is an overachiever. Okay. And there's nothing worse than playing against annoying overachiever. And that's probably the best way to put it. And that is a complete and utter, the highest of high term of endearment that I can give you. Yeah. Believe me.
Well, it's a good debut for him. The 5th round pick, Jackson Hawes, a really solid debut for him. Waiting to see a little bit more from some of the other Bills rookies. There's some injuries. There's, of course, a lot of youth, and we'll see how they perform in New York against the Jets. When we return, we'll check in on the New York side of things. The Jets side, as the host of Locked On Jets joins us to break down the matchup a little bit on how the Jets are feeling. They are 0-1. There's no getting around that, but a feeling of the ability to score some points maybe on a level that they haven't in quite some time. So it's coming up next. A Jets preview continues here on the Bill Squad Show. 5 Hour Energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it on with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. That's what you do. You grab yourself a 5-Hour Energy Transfusion on the golf course. It's a favorite of a golfer, the transfusion. But this one's a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies, making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're on the course or just need a little extra push to power through, maybe about the 13th hole, you're feeling it, need a little 5-Hour Energy boost, get that transfusion 5-Hour Energy. It'll do the job. Whether you're thinking about the wildest shots you've made or just, hanging with the friends, weird course, par 3 course at night, difficult course that's going to beat you up. I played one of those this week. Maybe that energy boost can help. So golf's all about good times with good people, good flavors. The grape ginger lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the beverage cart. You can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. Back on the Bill Squad show, previewing Bills and Jets, and we welcome to the show Jeremy White, Joe Marino, and Jerry Ostrowski. John Butchko, host of Locked On Jets, to preview this matchup. John, thanks for coming in, and how are the Jets feeling after a loss? And, as Bills fans know droughts very well, they know the feelings of a big, long drought. So they know the Jets drought. How are they feeling after a game where they looked exciting, but it's still a loss?
It's an interesting feeling because over the last 14 years, which is the Jets playoff drought, there have been a lot of games where no aspect of the Jets team played well. There have been a number of games where the defense played very well and they were let down by the offense. There have not been a lot of games where the offense had a big day and they were let down by the defense. But, if you kind of zoom out, this is the first year of a new regime. Aaron Glenn, the new head coach, Darren Muji, the new GM, and they are replacing a regime that took a big swing with Aaron Rodgers and brought in a number of big-name veteran players, and it did not work. So this year is very much about building for the New York Jets. It was a tough loss to Pittsburgh. They blew a 9-point lead in the second half. Lots of frustration, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. But I do think the Jets left that game encouraged because the plan on offense worked. And I think it begins with the offensive line. This was an offensive line that entered the season with a lot of potential, but question marks. You did not have experience at the tackle position, but you have a high ceiling. You have ability because you have back-to-back first-round picks in Olu Fashanu and Armand Membu. And Jets offensive line controlled the line of scrimmage against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that allowed Justin Fields to have a big game. Justin Fields was the guy the Jets brought in this offseason to play quarterback. They gave him a 2-year contract, $40 million, $30 million of that guaranteed. They are hoping Justin Fields is the next great reclamation project in the NFL. Well, through week 1, it looks pretty good. They got big performances out of Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. So in a loss, you find things to build on. This was not like 2012 when the Jets played the Bills. I don't know if you guys remember that game. It was like Mark Sanchez's best game of his career. That was kind of like a fluky game.
Is that Mario Williams' debut when the Bills are going with a lot of energy and he doesn't touch anybody? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was kind of like a fluky game. The Jets had a similar one in Detroit in 2018. They put up 48 points that night, but this actually felt sustainable because this was the formula the Jets had in the offseason. Offensive line controls things. Your star skill players play at a high level, and you get enough out of Justin Fields to feel good about your performance.
John, I wanted to ask you about the Jets defensive line. And obviously, I think they have a good starting group, but I think it's really important. You look at even the Super Bowl last year, you think about some of the good Jets defenses that we've seen. There's a lot of depth and ability to rotate. And I was pretty surprised, especially on the edge. They really only played 3 players. Jermaine Johnson's 50 of 56 snaps. Then was it Will McDonald started and played 31, and then Michael Clemens played 30 off the bench. And so Tyler Barron got like 7 snaps. Even at defensive tackle where, after Harrison Phillips and Quinnen Williams, it's Jawan Briggs, who they traded, on the day before the season, basically, and Jay Tufele, who I think has been a replacement level type answer. Do you think that this Jets defensive line has enough depth to it if the Bills go out there and they have this efficient offense and they run 75 to 100 plays, which we know the Bills are capable of? Do they have the horses up front to be able to rotate and give the Bills a challenge for 4 quarters?
There is not enough depth on this Jets defensive line. And I think that this is true in a lot of spots of the Jets roster where you look at the starting group, it's pretty decent. But after you get past that top level, there is not a lot of depth. And this is a change for the Jets. 2-3 years ago, they were starting John Franklin Myers and Jermaine Johnson. They had Bryce Huff and Carl Lawson, even a rookie Will McDonald at the defensive end spot. There are really 3 above average pass rushers right now on this defensive line. They are Will McDonald, Jermaine Johnson, and Quinnen Williams. And I was surprised Jermaine Johnson got as many snaps as he did in week 1 just because he was coming off an Achilles injury. But I think if you look at the way this Jets defensive line is built, they have to lean on the top guys. There's not really another option. You mentioned Tyler Barron. He was a 5th round pick this year. He had a rough preseason. In fact, there are a lot of people around the team who are saying that, if he had not been a 5th round pick, his roster spot may have been in jeopardy. That was the disappointment the Jets had from him during the preseason. I think Jawan Briggs played pretty well. He's the backup nose tackle behind Harrison Phillips. Jets actually traded for both of those guys near the end of training camp. But this is not a team that's very deep on the defensive line. Now, I think part of this is Aaron Glenn has kind of like an old school mentality. I think he is not as willing to rotate defensive linemen as Robert Saleh was. That was like part of Robert Saleh's DNA. He wanted a lot of depth on the defensive line because he wanted to send wave after wave, keep everybody fresh, and keep his big guys ready to try and close out the game in the 4th quarter. But Joe, to answer your question, no, there's not enough depth on this defensive line. It's one of the issues. I think the starters are good. After you get past that, if you get into this depth, there are issues. And there were even a couple of times when in the second half of the game against the Steelers where Aaron Rodgers saw there were backups on the field. And he took the Steelers and ran a no huddle offense, so the Jets could not sub their big guys back in. I think that's something Buffalo was probably looked at on film, and I would not be surprised if they replicated that in this game.
John, I think that's because Aaron Glenn's still trying to figure out how he can get the type of defense on the field that he had when he was at Texas A&M. I actually played against him in college. We beat him amazingly when I was at Tulsa. But Quentin Coriat, Aaron Glenn, I think Kevin Smith was on that team. Sam Adams was up front. Very, very formidable defense that they had in college. So he's always about defense. But I wanted to shift a little bit to offense and talk about Justin Fields. You talked about the reclamation project and trying to get him to be a viable quarterback in the league. And last week he had a lot of success against man coverage. The Bills obviously trying to stop the run, had a ton of man coverage, the 2nd highest rate of Bobby Babbich's career as a defensive coordinator. I think both of those games, number 1 and 2, is against Baltimore. But what do you see Aaron Glenn and the staff doing to try to get him to be that quarterback that a lot of people think he can be, which is, that mobile guy, make passes in the pass, make completions in the passing game. He has had an issue of taking too many sacks. He only had 1 this past week. What are they doing to build around him to get him up to speed?
Well, I think number 1 is something I mentioned at the top. They invested a 1st round pick at the right tackle position in Armand Membou. And heading into the draft, that was a glaring hole. The thing with the Jets is the number 2 wide receiver spot after Garrett Wilson was also a glaring hole. And the question heading into the draft was, would they prioritize the trenches or would they prioritize the wide receiver position? They went with the trenches, which I think was the right move. I think beyond that, this is a run-based offense. Aaron Glenn has said that he wants to be able to run the ball above all else. And I think in today's NFL, you run the ball. If you're a run-first team, you're doing it with the idea that you're going to make the passing game easier. Because if you can run the ball effectively, it forces the defenses to kind of simplify its coverages, as you mentioned. And Justin Fields is also part of the run game. The Jets utilized him on a number of designed runs. Now Fields also is going to scramble if he doesn't like the look he's got and he sees an opening when he's dropped back in the pocket, he will take off. But I think more than anything, the Jets want to lean into his running ability. And Breece Hall had a big game week 1. Now, Breece Hall's had big games the last couple of years, but this was a different type of big game for Breece Hall. Breece Hall's always had the ability to hit the home run, but he's been inconsistent on a play-to-play basis. And one of the things, and this is the old coaching staff mentioned this quite a bit, is sometimes Breece was a little too hesitant to hit a hole. He was waiting for the right hole to open, and that's not always the best approach for a running back. he was very decisive in week 1. And, I think there have been moments over the last 2 years in particular where the Jets offense has struggled so much, and so much has been on Breece Hall's shoulders that he's been looking to rip off the 20-25 yard run because the Jets struggled so much to make a big play. In week 1, he took what was there. He hit his holes hard. He did not hesitate. And that's the type of thing that, it keeps the offense on schedule. It prevents Justin Fields from getting into those bad downs and distances. So I think everything the Jets are doing is to prevent Justin Fields from getting into situations he's not comfortable with. Because if you put Justin Fields into a drop back passing game where you're in 3rd and 13 constantly, that's just not who Justin Fields is right now. Now, maybe a few years down the line after, he can develop a bit, he could get there, but that's not who he is right now. So the Jets are trying to utilize his skill set in a way and utilize the skill sets of everybody on the offense to keep Justin Fields out of situations he's not comfortable in.
John Butchko, Locked On Jets, helping us preview this week's game. John, thanks so much for the time, and enjoy it Sunday.
My pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
Guys, one other element of this matchup is the vitriol, the severe dislike. Deion Dawkins, who is the snowman. Joe, you teased at the beginning. He even said, I'm going to become the abominable snowman. So you might have to keep it in check. Don't get any 15-yarders here, Deion. We know you hate Michael Clemens. You flat out said it last year or at the Super Bowl. He said, I don't even want to say who he is. Number 72, Michael Clemens. He couldn't even stop himself from saying it. He just hates him so much. So, it could get spicy out there.
This feels like you, Jerry. You're the one that's played divisional games.
I'm trying to prolong this.
Did you hate anybody?
I hated playing against Daryl Gardner in Miami, man. I could not stand him. And they all kind of went hand in hand. Bowens was cool. I liked Bowens. We got along with him fine. But that whole trio of him, Tim was just hard to play against. And then, of course, Zach Thomas back there was like the equivalent of the kid going, nah, you can't get me because I got 2 guys that are 380 in front of me. And it was just, but Daryl was rough to play against.
Did you make peace later on, or is it just no, just don't like that
No,
guy?
The only time I made peace is when him and I were going at it. And of course I was playing on one side, Rube's on the other side. And about the 6th play in, Ruben grabs me. He goes, would you shut up? I go, why? He goes, you're not the one playing against him. I am. So if anything, Rube was more mad at me than anybody, but we never made peace or broke bread or any of that, by no means.
One other thing I wanted to ask you about today, Jerry. Today is, of course, we record today is September 11th. The skyline in New York there, to see that the skyline, of course, changed more than 20 years ago. And you would have been in the league then. I remember I was on my way to One Bill's Drive to cover a practice as a part-timer with GR. And the league shuts down for younger people. They might not remember it as clearly. How do you remember it in the context of being a player at that time and what all happened in those days?
Well, you remember it was a Tuesday when it happened. So I was actually going in to get treatment and work out. It was an off day for us. And I just remember leaving the house and going into the stadium. My wife calls me on the phone. She goes, there's something wild happening. The air traffic control's all messed up. A plane flew into the World Trade Center before they knew it was a coordinated terrorist attack, and got to the stadium and the facility, and they have a lounge there, a player's lounge. I went into the player's lounge and sat on the couch and just started watching. John Fina happened to walk in too, and he comes in, and we ended up sitting there for almost 3 hours just watching this take place and people coming in and out of the room. And it was, while Buffalo's 7 hours away, you're still in New York. So there was a big part of that you could feel, people lining up. I remember going home and there was a firehouse by my house had a blood donation deal set up, and just hundreds of people in line trying to donate blood. And, the part that was really amazing and it was an unbelievable experience was when we had a team meeting and they had a telephone up there. We had no Zoom or nothing back then. Everything was teleconference, and they had the phone set up on a speaker, and the NFLPA representatives for the Giants and the Jets got up and talked about, they said, look, guys, we understand you guys have to do what you're doing, but we are not playing this week. We cannot play this week. And they put it up to every team for a vote, and they went by alphabetical order, and it was like Atlanta Falcons. It was, and then they hit the Bills, and every one of them, you're listening on the telephone and you can hear the, no, we're not playing. Next one. No, we're not playing. And it was just, it was pretty amazing. The solidarity and the amount of unity in the league at that time. And just, yeah. And I mean, then the next week you play, and I think we were supposed to go to Miami that week and play the Dolphins. Game gets canceled, and then, you play at home, and the Bills are red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
Right. And, yeah, it was pretty wild.
Yeah. I remember they moved the games a week, and they had to move the entire postseason, right? The Super Bowl moves by a full week,
Yeah.
and they had to kick a car show or something out of the Superdome, get them to agree to, because they picked up that week 2 game and then moved it all the way to the end of the schedule and slid the entire thing, which would have been obviously a massive undertaking. But yeah, those days, of course, like watching sporting events at Shea Stadium and Yankee Stadium, and the first games back in New York, Giants or Jets, whatever. And I'd imagine, if you're going to this game on Sunday, there'll be, of course, moments to commemorate the events of that day at MetLife Stadium coming up this week. So thanks for.
Yeah, and obviously, the Whitney Houston national anthem at the Super Bowl after the Gulf War started, an amazing moment as far as patriotism and stuff. But the stuff that went on around the 9/11 deal was still this day probably some of the most patriotic stuff and unity within our country that I've ever experienced.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that story of those days. When we get back, we'll get key matchups, picks, and continue to look ahead. Again, if you're just kind of joining us late here on the stream, at Oliver, a walking boot. We're waiting to see what the latest is on him. Maybe get an update from Sean McDermott on that tomorrow. So back with picks and some comments and questions as well. This is the Bill Squad Show. Mazda. That's right. You can run through life with the help of Mazda in a Mazda vehicle, because Mazda, you just move through life, or you can find the things that move you. It's your choice. You can choose to get out there, choose your people. You can choose to go for it. Like, really go for it. Just choose to do something that moves you. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. Mazda, move and be moved. Time to mix in some comments. Get in our key matchups to watch and picks as the Bills go to New York to play the Jets. My matchup to watch for you here, I got a bit of a stat for you. I'm borrowing what Joe said. You think it's a big day for the sack artists up front, Bosa, whoever. I would have predicted Ed Oliver to get a couple of sacks, but if he's in a walking boot, maybe not. Justin Fields, time to throw, like 3.8 seconds. Justin Fields is as good an example of the argument sacks are a quarterback stat as there is. He is holding the ball all the time. He and Russell Wilson are the two. They're both in Pittsburgh last year. Those two have the most multi-sack games in NFL history. And think about the length of time that some of these other quarterbacks played. And Justin Fields is already like up at the top, most multi-sack games, times getting sacked. So I think it's a recipe for disaster. The new negative play in football is not the interception, it's the sack. Sacks kill drives. Offenses are smart. They protect the ball, but you can't stop bad quarterbacks and sack-prone quarterbacks from taking sacks. So I like the Bills to be comfortable in this game because I think they'll get to Fields, and those negative plays will kill the Jets' offense.
Justin Fields has a sack rate of 11.8% for his career. And there's not been a lot of growth in terms of what that's looked like from his rookie season to where he's at now. I mean, only took 1 sack last week, which is pretty impressive. I think the game script mattered a lot there, right? The Steelers or the Jets had a 2-score lead in the second half, right? That's going to help a ton with kind of masking some of that. But that 11.8%, that's way, I mean, half of that's probably where you need to be, if not a little bit lower. So I think it's a big opportunity for the Bills to tee off a little bit here. And I think outside of Garrett Wilson, who are you really concerned about as a weapon in that passing game? Tyler Johnson or Josh Reynolds or rookie tight end and Mason Taylor? They don't really have it. So you key in on Garrett Wilson, which is a tough matchup for Benford. It's been a tough matchup for Benford, but you work on that, and my goodness, you are potentially going to have a sack party. I think Bosa has a big night.
No, I agree. And I mean, subsequently, you look at the Jets, and they're 28th right now after week 1 in pressure rate on offense. An opportunity for our defensive line to get right. Then you look in Buffalo. I mean, is kind of mid as I thought that group played, and mid for them still pretty good. Buffalo number 5 in pressure rate on offense, so you expect a big day out of Josh Allen. Obviously, it'll help them if this Aaron Glenn does not want to do a bunch of rotation because, as John talked about, the depth of defensive line for the Jets. So, all the numbers, they all mesh up really, really well for the Bills in this game. The issue I have is, as always, as a former player and knowing how these things go and knowing how the human mind is, and as Karl Mock used to say, the mind is a terrible thing. After a huge win like you had against Baltimore, just getting that dauber back up and, getting the tempo back up and getting out of the gates fast and not letting an opponent that for all intents and purposes is inferior to you hang around and gain valuable confidence.
I think we were all, and Bills fans were really able to be forgiving to the defense for what happened against Baltimore. It's a very difficult matchup. You were down a number of players. You might be down Ed Oliver here. If the Jets do the same kind of thing and really have their way with this Bills defense running the football, are you going to be as forgiving?
No, I don't think it could possibly be that bad. I mean, they gave up explosive runs on like 20% of attempts. It's only 8 yards a carry. I mean, I'd be real concerned. I think the Bills could give up a decent amount of rushing production in this game. That wouldn't surprise me. But if Justin Fields and Breece Hall look like Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, it's time for even harder conversations.
Yeah.
But I also think Pittsburgh is old and they're working to stay old. I've been kind of disappointed in some of the signings they've had this offseason, as much as I like Hayward. I mean, at some point in time, I know they make a huge financial commitment to him, but you're going to have to find the guys behind him, behind the TJ Watts and the others. And, it's getting old, it's getting stale. And unfortunately, franchises that hang on to their own that long usually fall into oblivion for a while. I don't know if it'll happen in Pittsburgh, but, a prime example of it is what happened to the Bills in the 17-year drought. You're constantly chasing your tail until all of a sudden you fall into a generational quarterback. So, I don't know if – I'm not saying that the Bills defense after week 1 is it was an anomaly, but I do think this will be a much better matchup than they had in week 1.
I like getting these teams back to back.
Yeah.
And you're not going to face another team like this until, I don't know, maybe Philly and was week 17 or something like that. So I think coming out of Baltimore, getting that win, but everyone very mindful of the defensive struggles into this game with an opportunity to correct that, where, I think fans always want accountability. That's like an important phrase. And Sean McDermott, I think in the best possible way that he can give it to you, said that during his presser this week and talking about how it needs to be hard conversations. And so I'm excited to see how this defense responds, because I think as a competitor, it should be exactly what you want.
If it doesn't, I don't know about personnel changes, the deadline, guys in the practice squad, Jordan Phillips. I saw Josh Reed from Channel 4. He was posting video of Jordan Poyer and said, looks like Poyer is ramping up and starting to do more. That's to his eye. That's very possible that could simply be that he's working himself back into football shape, right? He joined late. He'd been traveling. But I wonder if we get to a point there on any position here, if the starting 11 stays the starting 11, or if we look at, job changes. Trey White's going to maybe come back. And does he hold that job down, or did Dorian Strong put a little bit of good stuff on tape where the Bills might be interested to see what he has? Like the Bills, this defense, Joe, you'd said it. It's going to be a work in progress. You warned everybody. You called it. You said, don't freak out about what happens after the opener. So I feel like I want to continue to reiterate that you've been saying that, and work in progress is a big part of what this is.
Yeah, and I think you have the opportunity for things to normalize with the coming schedule, really week 2 through the Carolina game, then you get to Kansas City. I think you have an opportunity to find your defense a little bit, get some players back, and gel, right? I mean, there are new pieces here. There is a different identity. The Bills played defense different against Baltimore. They didn't give light boxes. They were 8th lowest in light box percentage. They played a ton of man coverage. They played 33%. 1 in 3 snaps had 3 linebackers on the field. That's not the Bills defense, right? Mm-hmm. So it is different. If you want a different, you got it. The Bills blitzed. They were top 5 in blitz rate in the NFL this past week. It is 100% different. And so, and within that, I think 2 of the most important players for this defense to be optimized for what it wants to be are Maxwell Harrison and Michael Hoyt. Those guys aren't available right now. And so I think this, the defense doesn't need to peak right now. And I think there's context, whether it's the matchup, what's going on with the Bills. that let's see this thing through a little bit. And I think by middle part of the season, this defense is going to be thought of a little bit differently.
No, I agree 100% with that. And I think the best thing about this schedule is it gives you, and like you said, it's unfortunate Harrison's not out there, but now you got Dorian Strong, valuable experience, Deion Walker, Sanders, valuable experience. I'd love to get Landon Jackson sometime. Yeah. How that works, I don't know. I mean, you're in a jammed up spot with a ton of bodies, but I'd like to see him get some time. These are the games you have to see who you can ride with late in the season. And, kind of going back to what you said about Poyer and people talking about Poyer ramping up and getting ready to play, nobody experience-wise, toughness-wise and all those things is as good as Jordan Poyer. We know that. The problem is the vessel that all that is in, can it get to the play on time?
Yeah. And
that's obviously what happens when you get older. You just can't get there. And so nobody's, saying that Poyer is not willing, and as far as experience and all that stuff, it's just at some point, man, your body betrays you. And if you can't get there in time, it doesn't matter what you want to do or what you know.
Give us a like and a subscribe, and also time for some of your questions. We'll get your questions in, have a couple saved and loaded up. If you've got something for Joe or for Jerry, for the panel here, drop it in a comment, and we'll get a couple in here. Want to bring up this one to start us off because, here we are doing picks. And when last we picked, Bill remembers, Jerry O picked the Bills to beat the Ravens. He was the only one that did it. Joe and I picked the Ravens to win. I just said I would be really impressed if the Bills managed to win this game. And they did, but we were wrong. Joe, you and I were wrong. Jerry 1-0. Take the victory lap.
But I do want to say, why did I say they would win? Do you remember?
You had a feeling, right?
Josh Allen, right?
Did I give this long, great Joe Marino answer of statistics to back up what no. There's just something about the feel that I had this magic feeling going on with me, man. I just had a gut feeling. And I mean, obviously I was right.
In defense of my incorrect pick, I think I had the right read on the game.
Yeah.
No, you did.
I
wasn't. No,
I'm not saying you're extending criticism to me, but boy, people have been yelling at me all week. I know Howard Simon. What did Howard Simon put on X this week? He's like, I got he put a picture of a dog or something. He's like, I need people to stop yelling at me for not picking the Bills. Like, I had the perfect read on this game.
No,
20 different things had to go a certain way for the Bills to win the game. If one of them doesn't, we're having different conversations right now. Yeah. Josh went God mode, and I'm glad he did. I'm glad to be wrong.
Couple questions. We already know the Bills changed at punter, and now kicker. I mean, it probably will be a conversation. How do you see the Bills handling the kicker situation? Tyler Bass has, of course, been here for a while. I end up feeling kind of bad for Tyler Bass because here's Matt Prater, toast of the town, folk hero.
Right.
He hit a very makeable kick. Tyler Bass dropped a 60-yarder against the Dolphins. No one remembers because he had a bit of a struggle last year, and he missed a kick in the playoffs. I feel bad for Bass, and I don't know what happens from here. If Prater keeps hitting him, and that's a job that of all the jobs, I feel like it can be pretty whatever, unpredictable. You can lose your job quick as a kicker if someone comes in and is hot.
Tyler Bass's contract's going to help him, right? There's a lot of dead cap the Bills would have to eat. So I think ultimately you don't bring Tyler Bass back until he's ready to go. And obviously they ramped him up. He kicked, and the next thing we know, the Bills are working on kickers, and Tyler Bass is on IR. This pelvic soreness thing, it's not trending in the right direction. And so I think you leverage him being on IR, and until he is absolutely ready to be the kicker and be the guy that you paid, he can't play. He can't play. Side note here, and I know that this is the details that everybody tunes in for. We potentially have the oldest kicker battle of all time coming up here between Nick Folk and Matt Prater. We know that Prater's 41. Nick Folt's 40, turns 41 in November. So you talk about some guy. I mean, these guys have kicked like 1,000 combined kicks in the NFL. And Folks has been good over 95% the last 2 years. So some old kickers here in East Rutherford on Sunday.
I like it.
I think I saw something the other day. Somebody said that they had a picture of Prater after the game and his hair's all over the place.
Yeah.
And he's looking. So something like, this is what a cigarette on the floor of a bar looks like at the end of the night or something like that. It was great. But no, man, we've got all kinds of storylines. We got Sean Burr or Bill McDermott as our new kicker.
Yeah,
he's like a cross between Sean McDermott and Bill Burr. I mean, yeah, dude. But as far as Bass goes, I don't think this is going to end well. As far as he goes, I wouldn't doubt if at some point we find out he's getting surgery on that thing. I mean, if it's taken this long, I mean, they've rested him for quite a while.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't, those hip pelvic area things, usually they don't heal up on their own. Usually have to go in and get some help.
One more comment from, here we go. If we don't see a major, this is from Steve, major step up from Milano in the coming weeks, is the replacement in the building, or do we look outside? And I like this question, guys, in the context of what we said about the linebackers in that opener. Joe Milano was one of the stars of camp. Looked like a fountain of youth, Milano. And then you saw what you saw on the field on Sunday. So, like, how do you square those two? Everyone has a bad day, kind of thing.
I think if you're going to rank it, so Bernard was probably the worst. Rapp, then Milano, then Bishop in terms of those parties. And I think you can attribute a lot of Milano's shortcomings to how bad Bernard was, where, Milano's pursuing backside, right? And when Terrell Bernard is not taking on blocks, or he's aiming at the wrong shoulder, or not willing to stick his face in there, that puts Milano as a pursuit style player in a very compromising situation to be able to fill and get where he needs to go, right? Like you have to be gap disciplined. You have to get to your gap. Terrell Bernard just forgot that was an important part of playing run defense. And so when that gap is continuously not accounted for, it's a nightmare for Milano to pursue from the backside, right? I think 8 destroyed 58 in that game. And so I'm not quite there yet with Milano where I'm concerned. I think Bernard really goofed up that game and affected a lot of those players, especially 58.
No, I agree. I think both of them are going to be fine. As soon as we get back to playing teams that allow us to see and run and fit, and do the things they do and not have to worry about 350-pound dudes in my face all the time, I think that'll make things a lot better.
Did you guys catch the trivia question I asked this morning on WGR? Maybe, maybe not. Here it is. It's beautiful. Anyone listening, take this, take it to your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister. Which current Buffalo Bill has won Player of the Week more often than Josh Allen? Which current Buffalo Bill has won Player of the Week honors more often than Josh Allen?
Was that a slip? Is it an offensive player?
No. I think Big O might have it. You got it?
Well, I'd go if Big O's, I'm not super smart, but I go on probability. So I'd have to think that the guy that's been in the league for 962 years, the kicker, Prater, probably has more opportunities than anybody. So I'll go that he's been special teams player of the week more than Josh Allen.
That is correct. Matt Prater. Matt Prater has 19 Player of the Week honors to Allen's 16.
I mean, hell, he's 47. He's got to process.
I thought he might have a chance,
right?
Boswell had to hit from 56 and 60, Errol, so I think he might have had a chance this week under the circumstances.
Yeah. I mean, he might have one coming up. I mean, if Prater gets one, it's a cool number 20. And in the all-time list of Player of the Week honors, I was digging into this to find out like where Josh ranks. Brady has 40. Allen has 16. So a little bit of a ways to go. Before we wrap up, Jerry, you're coming to town soon. You gonna be in for a game? Is the overreaction show? You guys doing stuff on location?
No,
just gonna come in and go to the game.
They're having an alumni weekend, and I took advantage of it because the Fighting Panthers of UNI, University of Northern Iowa, are off that week. It just coincided, so I'm going to be up there for the Saints game. I don't know. Maybe I'll get to go to a really cool tailgate.
You got the invite. I'll roll the red carpet out.
I know a guy. There's some characters in the tailgate now, Jerry. I think you'd fit in well.
Yeah, I've got no problem with characters. We're good.
We'll be ready.
Yeah, so I'll be up there for the Saints game. I'm excited for it.
Very good, very good. And Joe, you think it was your last game at Old Highmark? You can't beat that memory than Baltimore, huh?
I think it has to be. We were thinking about Dolphins for Thursday night. It's actually the day after my wife's birthday, and she was talking about that would be cool. But we're pretty not interested in getting back in an airport anytime soon. But it's a heck of a way to send it off. I mean, if I get a chance maybe to go to a playoff game or something, that might get me back in the building. But that felt like the perfect way to say goodbye to an awesome place.
Are you still
What about
unbeaten?
Atlanta?
I think I didn't hear either question, but
okay. He said what about Atlanta?
No, you go for it.
I said, are you still unbeaten? Have you never seen them?
It's not. No, it's Josh Allen. I've never seen the inventory is this: Carolina, Houston, that same year, whatever year that was, that 22 Rams opener in SoFi, Chiefs, the Taron Johnson end of game, Packers against Rodgers a couple years ago, where the Bills were awful in the second half, but blew them out in the first half, and this one, and the Senior Bowl. I've never seen Josh Allen lose a football game. So Terry Pagula,
you're ready. Hey, listen, if they make it to the AFC Championship game,
I got to be there.
You only need Terry Pagula. We will crowdfund this thing to make sure
we go to Super Bowl. He might be on the sideline.
Yeah.
If that happens, if my next game is an AFC Championship game and they win it, Terry, get me there, brother. And I got a few people that I need to bring with me. But other than that, we can see if it's truly me being a good luck charm. But it's pretty cool. And that's I mean, for them to pull that one out, maybe it really is a superpower that I have.
Well, if you can join us in post games, we're live here on post games this week. All three of us will be here pretty much start to finish. No travel issues for Joe this week. We'll just be watching.
I'll be traveling back.
You're traveling,
but I've got my iPad, my 13-inch iPad. It's got 4G, all that 5G. I'm planning on being mobile, so I'll be watching the game there, and then we'll be good to go. So we'll see.
Good to go. So we're on post game after the Bills and the Jets play 1:00 on Sunday. Then back for this spot the week after. We'll see if the Dolphins still have a head coach or if he's on the hot seat or how bad it could get. Because it's a Thursday night game, and I got to be honest, I don't know our schedule for that yet.
Yeah, I was just thinking we got to figure that out, guys.
We'll work on that. All right. Until then, thanks everybody for tuning in. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, of course. Wherever you get your podcast, you can be subscribing to this and get it sent right to your phone, and make Joe's Locked On Bills show part of your first listen every day. Like first part of the day, I'm driving into work listening to Joe, checking it out, and you can too, of course. So subscribe, like, all that good stuff, and we're back for post game of Bills Jets. Gentlemen, thank you. Until then, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Much love. Go Bills.